We begin today the Gemara on Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis, right in the middle of the Amud. The first word on the line is Yimei, where it says V'idach. We're speaking here about the Machlokes of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua regarding when the creation was. Rabbi Eliezer says that the creation happened B'Tishrei, and Rabbi Yeshua says that it happened in Nisan. We had yesterday the sources for this, and there's other things that are related to that. So here the Gemara brings also regarding the timing of the Mabul, that they also argue about the lashon of the pasuk when it speaks about the timing of the Mabul in connection to the age of Noach. That's how the Torah describes the Mabul. That Noach was 600 years old, but when though? It says that it came b'chodesh hasheni. When the year is that? So this is also an argument of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. Let's see. Ozdol Tamayu, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua follow their opinion here. The Tanya we learned in Abraisa, u'b'shnas sheish meiz shana l'chaya Noach, and it was 600 years in the age of Noach. L'chodesh hasheni, the second month, b'shiva siyem l'chodesh, 17 days to the month. So when is this? Rabbi Yeshua oime oisa hayom yud zayin be'ir haya. That day was Yud Zayin Ir. That's Chodesh Hasheni, Ir. So Rabbi Yeshua is following his opinion that creation happens in Nisan time, so therefore the Cheshbon has to come out that Chodesh Hasheni is Yud Zayin Ir. Yom shemazel kima shekeya bayom. This is a time period in the year that mazel kima. What's this mazel kima? So I'm not going to go through over here the whole inyan of the mazalis, but Rashi here brings, Bekitzer, the point that there are 12 mazalis. And Rashi brings it, it's towards the end of the Rashi here, there are 12 mazalis that are constantly revolving around the earth. And you always have mazalis that are above the earth, or maybe I guess it's called above the horizon, and those that go below. And it's constantly going around by day and by night. There are those that are above by day and coming down, and there are below the earth and coming back up. In different time periods of the year, there are different mazalis that are in different positions that cause, there are also the causes for the change of season. Because this mazal kima, there's a Gemara in Brachas that says that this is the mazal that's the source for rain. So therefore when it comes the summertime, which is an Iyar, that mazal kima is on its way down. And it's going away. This mazal kima causes all the waters to be stronger and the rain and everything that comes in the winter. But when it comes in Iyar time, this mazal kima is setting. It's going down and away from the earth, from the horizon. And so that's what happened in the time of then when the Eibush is bringing the Mabul. Mazal kima was shekeya. Oh, mayonis mismatim. And all the springs and the water recedes. They go down. It gets less. Like it is in the summer, that there's much less rain. On Eretz Yisrael and those areas of the world, there's no rain at all. But, so now how does the Mabul happen in such a time period when it's less water and the mayonis are receding? Because the people then in the time of the Mabul, they changed from their behavior of what they were supposed to do. Shina Kadosh Baruch Hu Aleim Ma'aseh Bereishis. The Eibush also changed the nature of the mazalis. V'hela mazal kima bayayim, and instead of the position of mazal kima then setting, the Eibush brought it up in middle of the day. And what does the Eibush do? In this mazal kima there are stars. There's a Rashi in Brachas that says that there's 100 stars in mazal kima. And the Eibush removed 2 stars. V'notal shnei kechavim mikima. The Eibush opens up this kima by removing 2 stars. And v'hevi mabul oilam. And that's what brings the gush of water to come out into the world. These 2 kechavim, this is what it says in the pasuk, vayiftachu arubeis hashamayim, that the Eibush opened up these windows in heaven. It refers to this mazal kima, which is the source of the rain. The Eibush took out these stars from this mazal kima, and the rain came into the world, or the mabul came into the world. This is the way Rabbi Yeshua sees it. So this is in Chodesh Iyar. Rabbi Eliezer, on the other hand, Rabbi Eliezer says, Oisa yom yud zayin b'marchesh v'noya. He holds that the world is created in Tishrei. And therefore, according to him, the Cheshbon comes out that Chodesh Hasheni is in Yud Zayin Cheshbon. Yom shemazal kima oila bayom. That's actually the time period when mazal kima is coming up. And also the time mayonis mizgabrim. The mayonis, all the spring waters are intensifying. It's coming up. This is the time of rain season. And because the people in the times of the generation of the Mabul, they changed their behavior, Shina Kadosh Baruch Hu Aleim Ma'aseh Bereishis. The Eibush also changes the nature of Ma'aseh Bereishis. V'hela mazal kima bayayim. The Eibush brings up this mazal kima, and v'notlo shnei kechavim. The Eibush removed 2 stars from it, and v'hevi mabul oilam. And the Eibush brings the Mabul into the world. The Gemara in a moment is going to ask, Why is he saying that the Eibishter changed Ma'aseh Bereishis? According to Rabbi Eliezer, this is the nature of this time of the year. According to him, it's the beginning of the winter, and this is when Mazel Kima comes up, and this is the rainy season. So how is it a change of Ma'aseh Bereishis? The Gemara will explain that. But first, the Gemara explains the Lashon that it says in the Pasuk that the Mabul happens by Chodesh Hasheni. What is Chodesh Hasheni? Chodesh Hasheni always means the second month, which is Chodesh Iyar. Even if it's true that Rosh Hashanah starts from Tishrei, but as far as the name of the months are concerned, always in Torah, the months are counted from Nisan. So Chodesh Hasheni should be Nisan. So the Gemara asks, Bishleim Rabbi Shua, Hainu D'chsiv Sheni. According to Rabbi Shua, we understand why it says Chodesh Hasheni. It's Chodesh Hasheni, which is Iyar. Again, my sheni, what is the term sheni that the Torah says here? So the Gemara answers, sheni ledin. Over here, the word sheni means the second month after judgment. So either the pshat in this is that the judgment of the Mabul, when the Eibishter decided to bring the Mabul, that was the Chodesh Tishrei, and Sheni means the month after that is when the Mabul actually happened, or Sheni Ledin means Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, as we learned before, is the day of judgment, B'chlal, for the entire world. So now the Gemara explains, Bishleim Rabbi Shua, Hainu Deshina. According to Rabbi Shua, we understand bringing a Mabul in the month of Iyar, that's the time when the summer begins, and this Mazel Kima, which is the source of the rain season, is setting and going down, so it's against the nature, it's opposite of nature. El Rabbi Eliezer, Mai Shina. What does it say here? That the Eibishter changed nature. What he meant to say is, like what Rav Chisda said regarding the Mabul. The Amar Rav Chisda, Bereischin Kilkulu, when they did Averis, so this was with hot water. So either this means the hot taivus that they had, or it means the Avera of Zera Levatola. And therefore they were also judged and punished with boiling hot water. The Mabul itself was boiling hot water. The Reischin kilkulu ba'avera. The Reischin is the Averis that they did, and the hot refers to the Averis. And where do you see that the waters of the Mabul were boiling hot? Ksiv hacha, because the pasuk by the Mabul says vayishoichu amayim, and the water calmed down. But what does calm down mean? It refers to the hotness. So ksiv hasam, it says in the Megillah, v'chamas hamelech shachacha, the anger of the king went down, cooled down. So you see that vayishoichu means to cool down. So the Mabul's water was boiling hot. There's a discussion about this in the Mefarshim benegeh to the teva itself. If the Mabul was actually boiling hot, so how didn't it affect the teva? The teva, the tar of the teva and the whole structure of the teva should have melted and being in the hot water for such a long period of time. Some say it was a miracle. Others say that around the teva it was cool water, and the raya for that is because we know that Oig Melech HaBashan stood and survived right near the teva. So if he stood near the teva, so near the teva it couldn't have been hot water. So therefore over there it was cooler. Tana Rabbanan, Nabraisa we learned, Chachmei Yisrael, the Yiddish Chachamim, Meinin LaMabul. They count the years for the Mabul, which in essence means the years of the generations of the people, because the age of the Mabul in the Torah is not counted from the time of creation. It's counted by the age of Noach. So they count the age of Noach and the generations that follow one after the next, Kirab Eliezer. They counted according to Rabbi Eliezer that the world begins from Tishrei time. Well, the Tkufa, but when it comes to the Tkufa, which means when it comes to the seasons, and you want to count from where is the beginning of the seasons. In other words, when is the beginning of the actual creation itself? Not the generations of the people living in the world, but the Tkufa of when the creation itself begins, Rabbi Shua. That the Chachmei Yisrael count like Rabbi Shua. That the world was created in Nisan. Right? This is Negeya. It's Negeya for a lot of different things, but one of the things, for example, it's Negeya is to the Birchas Hachama. Once in 28 years, when you have the Birchas Hachama, how many years ago did we have this? It was about 10 years ago, even less. Okay, so when do you do the Birchas Hachama? When the sun comes back to its original position that it was in when the Eibishter created the world, and it's in Nisan time. The first, right? It was last time it was Erev Pesach, and I think next time it's going to be Isra Chag. It's always in Pesach time. So when was the beginning of creation? So we follow, as far as the Tkufa is concerned, the cycle of the moon and the sun, we go according to Nisan. That's why Birchas Hachama is Nisan time. Chachmei U'Mesa'elam, the Chachamim in the world, of the nations of the world, Meinin Af LaMabul K'Rabbi Shua. Even when it comes not only to the creation, but when it comes to the generations and counting when is the beginning of mankind and counting the age of the people, they also count like Rabbi Shua that the world is created from Nisan time. Going back to the Mishnah, it said in the Mishnah that the Rosh Hashanah of Tishrei is the Rosh Hashanah also liyerokis, for the vegetables. Tana and Abraisa we learned liyerokis, ul maisris, ul nedarim. That Rosh Hashanah is a Rosh Hashanah for the vegetables, also a Rosh Hashanah for maisris, and also for nedarim. So the Gemara is going to explain all these things. The Yerakis Ma'ininu, when it says that Rosh Hashanah is the Rosh Hashanah for vegetables, what is this referring to? Ma'aser Yerek. It's the halacha of Ma'aser Yerek. You can't ever give Ma'aser from one year for the produce of the next year. You have to give for the produce of each year separately. There's a pasuk it's learned out from, I think it was Shana B'Shana. Each year has to be the Ma'asers for the produce of that year. So Rosh Hashanah is the cutoff day. That's what it means when it says Yerakis. So the Gemara asks, if so, Hainu Ma'asers. So it's the same thing as Maestris. Why does it say in the Braisa Yerakis and Maestris? Same thing. Yerakis means the Maestris of the Yerakis. That's the Gemara, Tana the Rabbanon, Tana that is, the Rabbanon, again, Tana the Rabbanon, the Katani the Iraisa. The Braisa mentions the two types of Maestris there are. There's the Maestris of Yerakis, of vegetables, which is only a Chiv with the Rabbanon. And there's also the Maestris that you have to give Minat Torah, from the Tvua and from other things that you have to give Minat Torah. Fragt the Gemara, if so, why doesn't it say the maestris of the that are minat Torah first, that you come before the maestris midrabanan? So the Gemara answers, I did the chavivele, because the Tana cherishes the mitzvahs midrabanan that Rabbanan instituted, as it says chavivim alai divrei seifrim. So aktima. So therefore he mentions the Yerakis, which comes midrabanan. He mentions that first. The Tana didan, the Tana of our Mishnah, that also says Rosh Hashanah, but it only mentions Yerakis. It doesn't mention Maisris. So Tana de Rabbanon, he mentions the fact that Rosh Hashanah is the Rosh Hashanah for the Maisris mit Rabbanon for the Yerakis, and the Kolshken de Iraisa. And it's self-understood that how much more so this is for the Maisris de Iraisa, that the Rosh Hashanah is at this time. He doesn't mention the Iraisa. Fragt the Gemara, Vilistni Maiser Echad. Here in the Braisa, when it says Maiser, why doesn't it say Maiser? Why does it say Maisreis, Loshen Rabim? What is it going on when it says Maisreis? It's going on the Maiser Dairaisa. So that's one chiyuv of Maiser. And for the Gemara, when it says Loshen Rabim, it means Maiser Behema, Echad Maiser Behema, Ve'echad Maiser Dogan. It's referring to Maiser Behema and also the Maiser of the grain. In other words, the Gemara, this Braisa is going according to the opinion that was mentioned in our Mishnah, that the Rosh Hashanah for Maiser Behema is not Rosh Chodesh Elul. That was Rabbi Meir's opinion, but it's like Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shua that say that the Rosh Hashanah for Ma'aser Behema is on Rosh Hashanah, on Tishrei. Vilistni Yerek, the same question the Gemara asks regarding Yerek. Why does it say in the Braisa Yerakais? It should say Yerek Loshen Yachid. And for the Gemara, regarding Yerakis, there are two types of Maesters for Yerakis. Today, Gavne Yerek, there are two kinds of Yerakis in the shiur, in the time of at what point is it going to be Chayiv and Ma'aser. The Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Yerek Hanegad, those vegetables that when you pick them, what you do with them is you bundle them, so Mishayegad. After you bundle them, that's when it's a finished product, and that's when the Chiv Maesters begins. And we learned already before many times, Maesters is when it's nigmar, when it's finished. Right? So usually by the grain, it's when it's a goyra and when there's a pile. But when it comes to Yerakis, there are two types. There are those that are bundled, so that's Chayiv when it's bundled. V'sha'enenegad, those that are not placed in bundles, Mishimalas HaKeli. When you have a keli that you're picking and you're putting it into a keli, so when the keli is full, that's when it's chayiv and the ma'aser for the yerek. So that's the two yerakis that this Braisa mentions here. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in the Braisa that clarifies further the halacha of the ma'asers of yerakis. Likit yerek erev Rosh Hashanah. So you have your yerakis of your field. So you have vegetables that you picked right before Rosh Hashanah, achalei tovei hashemesh, before the sun comes down, and then v'chazav likit mishatovei hashemesh. And then you continued picking the vegetables in the field. Taisus says that it says in the Yerushalmi, not you yourself, but through a guy. A guy continued picking the vegetables in your field on Rosh Hashanah, right after sundown. So then, ein taimrun u'maisrun mizelzeh. So you can't give the trumas and maisers from one for the other. There are two different years. You have to estimate each one of them separately for what trumas and maisers you have to give for them. So in other words, the point that this Braisa is making here is that when it comes to the Yerakis, you don't follow the time that it's planted. You don't follow the time when it starts blossoming, starts growing. You go after the Lakita, when it's being picked. If you have the same batch of vegetables in the field, but one was picked before Rosh Hashanah, before Shkia, and one after Shkia, that's it. That's the cutoff. It separates them into two separate years. And also the Brisa says another halacha, there could be a difference between one year and the next, also regarding which maasros you have to give. You don't give maasros from new to the old, and not from the old on the new. And if this was the second year of Shemitah, and you're entering into the third year after Shemitah, so it's different maasros. Shniya, you give Ma'aser Rishon and Ma'aser Sheni. You give the Ma'aser Rishon that goes to the Levi, and Ma'aser Sheni, which is the produce that you have to bring to Yerushalayim. Shlishis, in the third year, you don't give Ma'aser Sheni. There's Ma'aser Rishon for the Levi, and a Ma'aser Ani. Then there's the Ma'aser that you give for poor people. So the cutoff date of Rosh Hashanah is relevant, not only that you have to estimate the Ma'aser of each one of them separately, but it's also, it exchanges. Instead of Ma'aser Sheni, it's Ma'aser Ani. So now the Gemara is going to bring the source from this. Minan and Mili, where do we know that in the third year you take out Ma'aser Sheni and you only give the Ma'aser Ani instead? Omer Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Pasuk says, Ki sechala la'aser, es kol Ma'aser tvuoscha bashana ashlishis. When you complete giving your Ma'aser in the third year after Shemitah, Shnas ha-Ma'aser, the year of Ma'aser. And then the continuation of the pasuk there, it says, V'nasata la-Levi, la-Ger, v'la-Yosem, v'la-Almona, v'la-Vachlu b'sharecha. Okay, so the Gemara Darshans, it says Shnas ha-Ma'aser, it uses a single term of Ma'aser, Shana she'ein ba ela Ma'aser echad. So this year, the third year, this is a year that there's only one Ma'aser that you give. Ha-Ketzad, what does that mean, there's one Ma'aser? Ma'aser Rishon u-Ma'aser Ani. There's the Ma'aser Rishon you give, but you take out Ma'aser Sheni, and instead you just give Ma'aser Rishon and Ma'aser Ani. Well, Ma'aser Sheni you bottle, but Ma'aser Sheni is bottle. In other words, the way the Gemara is understanding this now is, if you look into the pasuk, it clearly says that you should give to the Aniyim, because it says, V'nasata la-Levi la-Ger la-Yosem v'la-Almona. So therefore we know that you have to give Ma'aser Ani in this year. Besides the Ma'aser Ani, there's only one more Ma'aser that you give, which is Ma'aser Rishon, but not Ma'aser Sheni. The Gemara asks, maybe there's another way how to read this pasuk. Maybe what the pasuk is actually saying is that you have to, at this year, you don't have to give not Ma'aser Rishon, not Ma'aser Sheni. All you give is Ma'aser Ani. So when it says in the pasuk Shnas ha-Ma'aser, it goes on the continuation of the pasuk that you give la-Ger la-Yosem v'la-Almona, which is just Ma'aser Ani. Talmud Loima. So there's another pasuk that says Ma'aser Rishon is a Ma'aser that you give every year. V'la-Leviim tedaber. V'amarta aleim, you tell the Leviim, ki sikchu meis b'nei Yisrael es ha-Ma'aser, shenesati lechem, that they go and take the Ma'aser that was given for them. This is the Ma'aser Rishon, me'itam b'nachlaschem. They take it from the Yidden, from their land, from their inheritance. So what do we learn from here? Hikishe yakasav lenachla. The Torah is comparing the Ma'aser Rishon of the Leviim to the nachla of the Yidden. Ma nachla, just like when it comes to the inheritance of Yidden, ein lo hefsik, it's theirs, and there's nothing that's taking it away from them. Af Ma'aser Rishon ein lo hefsik. So to Ma'aser Rishon, any year there's a chiyuv of Ma'aseres, which is all the years besides Shemitah, you always have to give Ma'aser Rishon. It's the Ma'aser Sheni that has that year that's off, which is on the third year of Shemitah or the sixth year of Shemitah, but not Ma'aser Rishon. Ma'aser Rishon you always have to give. Tanya Idach, we learned in a Braise, or according to another Girsa, it's Tanya Nami Hochi. We learned the same thing in a Braise as well. The Braise begins with the same pasuk we began with before, talking about the third year. So we learn from this pasuk, Shana Shein Ba'ela Ma'aser Echad. That's a year that is from the two Ma'aseres of Ma'aser Rishon and Ma'aser Sheni. There's only one Ma'aser. Okay, it's at Ma'aser Rishon or Ma'aser Ani. So you only give in the third year Ma'aser Rishon and Ma'aser Ani. Or Ma'aser Sheni you bottle, and you don't give Ma'aser Sheni. Yochalav Ma'aser Rishon Nam you bottle. You would think maybe the pasuk here is coming to say that in the third year you give only Ma'aser Ani and no Ma'aser Rishon either. Talmud Loimar. So the Tanakama brings a different pasuk. Uba Levi, that the Levi comes to you to collect his Ma'aser. What does that mean? Kozman Shaba. Anytime the Levi comes, you have to give him 10 you have to give him. That's what Uba means. Whenever he comes, any year the Levi comes, you have to give him from your produce Ma'aser Rishon. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. That's how Rabbi Yehuda learns it out. Rabbi Yaakov brings the pasuk we brought before. Ein it tzarech, I don't need this drasha of Uba Levi. Harei oimer vel alvim tedaber v'amarta aleim ki sikchu me'eis b'nei Yisrael es ha'ma'aser shenesati lechem me'itom b'nachal laschem. Hikishe yakasav lenachla. The Torah compares Ma'aser Rishon to your inheritance. Manachla ein la hefsik, just like the land that the Yidden have has no hefsik. Af Ma'aser Rishon ein la hefsik. So to Ma'aser Rishon is a Ma'aser that you give every single year. The next thing it mentioned in the Braisa was Nedarim v'chulu, that Rosh Hashanah is a Rosh Hashanah for Nedarim. What does this mean? How is the Nedarim of a person related to Rosh Hashanah? What's the scenario? Tan Rabbanan, so we learned in the Braise, Hamudar Hana Mechaveiroi L'Shana. If you make a neder, I will not have any benefit from my friend for a year time. How long is that? So Maynish Nemas Chaydish Miyayim L'Yayim. So you count 12 months from day to day. That's a year. But if you make a neder and you say this year, I'm not going to have enough for my friend this year. So what's this year? Even if it's the 29th day of Elul, it's Erev Rosh Hashanah. As soon as it's the next day, it's the night of Tishrei, the Rosh Hashanah, also Leishana. That Lashon of Shana Zu counts for a full year. And the Gemara explains this. Why do we say this? Even the opinion that says that one day of a year can't be counted as a full year, it's a machlokes. We had before. Rabbi Meir holds one day of a year is counted as a full year. Rabbi Eliezer holds it has to be at least 30 days. But over here it's different. Here he'll agree that l'tziyure nafshe kibul alei. This person that makes this neder not to have hanor from his friend, he wanted to be mitzayer himself. He's going to hold back that hanor from his friend. And v'hot starle. And therefore the point of his neder was to bring tsar on himself, and he brought that tsar. Even if it was tsar for one day, it doesn't matter. That's what he meant to say. When it goes by nedarim, you have to look at what he was trying to do. And therefore he was trying to give himself tsar, so by saying shana zu, he had that tsar for that one day, and therefore that's what shana zu means. But maybe the Rosh Hashanah for Nedarim is not Tishrei. Maybe when he says Shana Zu means this year, and the year changes Nisan time. Who says Tishrei? So the Gemara answers, no. B'Nedarim halecha chaloshim b'nei Yadam. When it comes to Nedarim, you don't follow the different, you could say maybe the beginning of the year is Tishrei, maybe the beginning of the year is Nisan. By Nedarim, you go with the way people speak. The way people speak is, when's the new year? The new year is Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah. So when a person says Shana Zu, he's referring to Tishrei. He's not referring to Nisan. Okay, the Gemara is going to continue on the different sugya, and get to the Maasros that goes all the way down to the next Amud. We'll do it tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem.